Hi, my name's Scott, and I'm participating in the Quaranzine Fest. I love the idea of an online zine fest, especially while we're all holed up in our houses right now. So I wanted to show you my zine. This is Mylxine. It's Mylxine. Originally, when I started it back in 1995, it was called Milk, but after I did it for about 7 issues, somebody had written me and told me that there was a bigger zine out in Milwaukee that was also called Milk, and I should probably consider changing my name. So I did. I wanted to keep it to where it still had the same name ish, but then also have Mylxine. But I thought, well, if one's already called Milk, then there's probably another one called Mylxine, because there was another zine called Milky, another one called Milky Way, and all this other stuff. So anyway, I figured no one else would have a name like Mylxine. So that's, if you're curious, that's where the name came from. As I mentioned, I started in 1995, so this is going into its 25th year. I used to be a lot more regular with it, but things got in the way. I had kids, and so I went to college and all this other stuff, so between that, so anyway, there's a lot of stuff that happened in between then. So, but I'm back again doing the zine, and I've wanted to get this out for quite a while. In fact, this cover here, if you could see it, this is done by my daughter. This is this painting that she did for this history fair. Had to do with the Dadaist movement, so it's a little bit of a collaboration between her and I. These pictures are from the protests in Seattle, the 1999 protests in Seattle that I took, and then the painting itself is hers. Her painting comes out a lot better in color, but anyway, this is what I got for the zine. So I am going to read the introduction to this, and the introduction is just a little bit of the history of zines. So here it goes. I started this zine not long after I moved to Pensacola. While I had seen zines before I moved to Pensacola, I didn't know where to put them in my mind. At the time, I was in the Navy, which is something I never really wrote about in my zine, and I had just moved to Pensacola. I had searched out record stores, and I came across this beautiful little shop named the Soundbox. I made friends with a few of the people working there, bought a ton of music, and then found a pile of zines on this little table by the door. The Mole, Trailer Trash, and Smell of Dead Fish. Seeing these zines really opened my eyes to the medium. While I appreciated what they were, none of them really reflected the music I was listening to at the time. My gateway to punk was through early 90s Olympia, Washington scene, and I was radicalized by the Riot Grrrl movement at that time. Listening to their records, but especially reading the liner notes, showed me the different worlds that were out there. I read about zines through their thank you list, but I also read about other writers too. Heavens to Betsy, the band. Heavens to Betsy mentioned Toni Morrison and Bell Hooks. That was the first introduction to their work. They also mentioned other bands, but showed an ideal vision of what punk could be: anti-racist, pro-feminist, and animal-friendly, and always anti-fascist. Listening to this in their music and seeing it played out in their lives inspired me in ways that are hard for me to describe adequately, but were so real in my life. I tried my best, failing at times, but always trying to live up to those ideals. That was the birth of my zine, 1995. I wanted to contribute to the punk scene in Pensacola, but I also wanted to contribute to the larger scene. Gradually, I became closer to a lot of those people over the years. My zine grew as a result. Living with Michelle Trailer Trash, Cindy Doris, and Aaron Kamabus helped me to see the importance of tenacity and honesty in zines, but more importantly, the power in this medium. Over the years, I've gone through periods of hyperactivity with my zine and long hiatuses. But as Michelle and I used to say, I don't see a time when I won't do this zine anymore. This year will be my 25th zine anniversary. Since my last issue, a lot has happened in my life. I fell in love with my partner Lauren. Our first pseudo date was actually an interview for Mylxine 17. Check it out if you can find it. We had a baby, then another one. I suffered a number of losses, including my dear friend and Mylxine contributor Samantha Dorsett. Survived a major hurricane. I went back to college and got a few degrees. Now I teach writing and do a lot of freelance writing, and even have my students write zines. So much has changed, but a lot is still the same. I've grown, gotten older, but still go out when I can and still produce as much as possible. As long as I'm here, I'll always be doing this. There might be more time between issues, but I'm still here until I'm dead. Promise. In this issue, I have an article I meant to write 100 times, but with the 20th anniversary of the Battle of Seattle, I wanted to pen it all down. I also wrote an immigration story about a friend. I actually wrote it a few years back and was originally going to be its own zine, but that never panned out, so here it is. My friend Indigo let me reprint a speech she wrote for the March for Black Women this last year. I also have 2 interviews, one with Amanda Kontrev and another with Erica Dawn Lyle. Amanda is a friend of mine who became somewhat famous for throwing a Taco Bell slushie at our local congressperson. You might have seen it on the news. The slushie heard around the world. Also interviewed Erica Dawn Lyle about coming out as transgender. The interview was originally going to run in the zine Angry Queer Coalition, but the zine never came out, so I used the interview for my zine. Early proceeds for the sale of the zine will go to help one of their members who's going through a rough time. And of course, if they want to reprint it here, that's always fine. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a little introduction, show you some of the things that are in there. I also have a little Stay Punk. See, look, Black Flag. Show you a couple of pictures in the zine. So this is some of the stuff from the Battle in Seattle. It's kind of a long article. I guess that's the good and bad thing about teaching writing is you end up doing a lot of it. Let me see, here's another one. This is the immigration story. This is about my friend Abram, who was a migrant worker, lived here in Pensacola after the hurricane and really got screwed over. This is a lot of work with the IWW and a lot of help that a lot of folks over here tried to do, but still, it's obviously very difficult to be a migrant worker over here in the United States, especially in Pensacola. Features the band La Armada. You might know them. Here's a picture of them at a rally, 2 of them, and I'm somewhere in the side. Then the interview with Erica Dawn Lyle. This is a really fun interview. I was really happy to do this. Erica since has gone on to become the guitarist for Bikini Kill. You can see that right there, one of the guitarists. And then Amanda Kontrev. And she has her picture here, and let me see. If I can find it there. Anyway, that's it here. But there's my friend Indigo with the speech from the march, and and then there's Amanda Kontrev. There's the picture of the slushie hitting our local congressperson. So anyway, I wanted to show you some of those things here, and and lastly too, I forgot one of the things that's also in here, which I think is kind of cool. I didn't write this, but this is this person I met recently called Ray Abels, and he wrote this story. It's really fascinating about being a punk in Argentina in the 1980s. It has to deal with the Falkland Islands. I mean, when does that come up in zines? Falkland Islands and all sorts of really, really cool stuff. He has a really wild story, so it's the last 3 pages here. I'd actually read that because that's probably a lot more interesting than my introduction, but I would save that for him. So if you're interested, here is my address. I guess I don't know if it's shown backwards on your screen or not, but anyway, it's Mylxine, 309 North 6th Avenue, Pensacola, Florida, 32501. And it's $5 if you want to get a copy, or if you want to chat me up, then I'll just read the entire thing out loud to you. All right, hope you have a good day, and happy Zine Fest, Quaranzine Fest to all of you. Bye-bye.